Hey, everybody. Man, welcome to FDIC. How in the heck are you not here? We're coming live from the single greatest fire event in the nation. Michael, we're teaching classes, we're going to booths, we're watching the finest instructors in the world. We're going to introduce you to some of the finest minds in the world. Um, Gang, you should be at FDIC, and Michael and I could not be happier bringing you the Mikey G and the Mikey D radio show live from FDIC. Yeah, brother? How's it going so far?
It's been amazing. It's been amazing. And I got to tell you, opening ceremonies today,
Yeah, killer.
David Rhodes knocked it out of the park. Scott Thompson, his keynote. If you haven't seen it, go online and look at it. But it's something they're going to talk about for years.
Yeah.
It was a great opening ceremony. David with the Beatles, it was amazing. It was amazing. And two old rock and roll guys, there's nothing better than that. And it was so much fun. And the message was so on point to where we are, should be in the fire service. There was nothing better than that. So it was a great thing. So I'm Mike Dugan. I'm a retired captain from the FDNY. And with me is my buddy,
Mike Galliano, retired from Seattle Fire in the United States Air Force. The Mikey G and Mikey D show live at FDIC is brought to you by, and I'm going to do as good as I can here. The studio is brought to you by Firehouse Subs. We all love those, yeah? Brought by Firehouse Subs and the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation. Enjoy more subs, save more lives. Sounds good to me. Find out more about restaurant ownership for you entrepreneurs out there at www.firehousesubfranchising.com. And if you need to know more about how to do that, I'm sure you can get on Fire Engineering when you watch this. There'll be plenty of information how to get a hold of the Firehouse Sub folks. Michael, we are here to talk about one of the things that we're doing along with our classes. We did This House Rocks. It was a blast. I mean, we had a room full of folks and just energized about making a firehouse that was awesome. We got a chance to talk to some Metro officers over at the JW, and I just got done doing the 1:30 time slot was killer. When you looked at the roster of the classes that were in the 1:30 time slot, I figured I was going to have 10 people in class, and I'm grateful it did not turn out that way. It was loaded. It was almost full. They were energized. I literally just got done. So if I'm sweating, that's how come, because I just got done working. Gang, it's FDIC. It's the brightest and the best in the nation coming to learn from folks from all over the country to try to get better. And one of the things that Michael and I are involved in is we are helping out a group called the Firefighter Air Coalition. Firefighter Air Coalition, gang, to keep it simple, is all about firefighter air. Every aspect that we can find research on, that we can do training on, that we can send you a link to other folks that are doing good training that relates to firefighter air, that's what the Firefighter Air Coalition is all about. 4 key pillars. We're looking at air management. We're looking at fire, smoke, and cancer, a cause and effect type of thing there, but research on both of those fronts. Anything that has to do with technology. So, some of our good friends that are helping us out at the booth, the firefighter air replenishment system people. We'll talk about FAR, air standpipe, our Lifeline fire hose, hand lines that actually have an air line in them, Arctic compressor. You want to go check out the electronic compressor that those folks have. I think it's going to transform how we do things in the fire service as far as power and refilling our cylinders. And then we had great support from Sure Sales. If you can get a hold of Chris Chambers and the Sure Sales folks, really great support. If you go to the Firefighter Air Coalition booth, all that information is going to be there, but that's the technology side. And then we have the research side. We have the folks that are way smarter than a couple of dumb old truck captains, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Oh, yeah. They blow us out of the water on, listen, they're the propeller heads.
Yeah.
We're the guys that chop through the wall.
Yeah,
they
but
fly over the wall.
You know what makes me really mad? They're the propeller heads, but handsome, studly propeller heads. Why you got to come in with a big brain and still be handsome, Richard? So, gang, I don't know if you can see it in this. I don't know if you can focus in, Scott, but this little training supplement right here, I'm telling you, we are really proud of it. We worked really hard on it. We went and got some of the brightest minds in the world, and Just for the record, they let me tag along because I was doing it, but we got some of the brightest minds in the world to contribute in the 4 pillars. So again, air management, fire, smoke, and cancer, technology, and research. We got an article in every single one of those categories. And we got Paul Combs to draw us one of the most kick-ass illustrations you've ever seen. We call this illustration Smoke on the Water. And so if you can see it, we got firefighters putting water on smoke, and that little hand is coming, trying to disrupt your day. One of the ways that's going to happen is, Michael, when we go to work, we exert a lot of energy. True? True story?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you don't, you better go get another job.
Yeah.
McDonald's is hiring.
Yeah. You're not doing the job in the right way unless you're getting dirty, smelly, and stinky. And you definitely are burning some air and having some physiological impacts of going through that initial bottle. Who we have talking to us today, the handsome man across from me over here, is Richard Kessler. Thought I was going to get tripped on Fire Safety Research Institute, so that's what I was focused on. Richard Kessler from the Fire Safety Research Institute. Let me tell you how Richard got on my radar. I was looking for the impacts, the physiological impacts of what we do on our bodies. That was my search. Every single time I kept going to that topic, guess who popped up? Richard Kessler from Fire Safety Research Institute. We're very fortunate because in our little training supplement here, if you can find one, the electronic or the print version, Richard and my friend Gavin Horn and Denise Smith wrote an article called The Physiological Response to Firefighting, Air Consumption, and Work Output. Now, this is research and stuff you've done a while ago, correct?
This has been ongoing for 10 plus years at this point. So.
Man, you know what? We're all newbies here, all right? Tell us how you got involved and what prompted you to want to do this kind of research.
Absolutely. Well, first, let me say thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be here.
Yeah.
You know, we had FSRI hosted a great boot camp the last 2 days, hands-on training at FDIC, fire dynamics with Dan Majikowski, fireground tactical considerations with Keith Stakes. So we've been, just having a blast the last couple of days. So
Keith Stakes, last year's instructor of the year.
Instructor of the year, the Keith Stakes. But so, it's this research is where my background is. This is some of the first research I did with the fire service, starting back 2011, really. Came in, there were decades of physiological research with Illinois Fire Service Institute, Dr. Denise Smith, understanding the physiological burden of firefighting. And what prompted some of this research on air consumption and the SCBA was the 30, 45, and 60-minute cylinders were starting to gain traction in structural response. And there was a legitimate concern that some of these larger cylinders could create biomechanical problems, right? Gait, movement, maneuvering around obstacles, but also changes in physiological response. So we set out back then to examine that. We ran hundreds of trials with firefighters, coming multiple visits. I think we had up to 8 visits per firefighter coming into the lab, everything from a baseline treadmill visit to get some baseline physiological measures, to single bouts of firefighting with the 3 sizes of SCBA, to repeated bouts coming out, swapping air cylinders, going back in for that second round for a little bit of an extended duration incident, and then working with the larger cylinders to go all the way through. Right, if we can, because we have the extra air capacity, what happens if we do work through without that short break to swap bottles? And we found some really interesting measures. I mean, right off the bat, not surprisingly, as soon as you start that firefighting response, heart rate starts to go up. Core temperature is going to start to rise.
Some of us more than others, right? Some of us more than others.
We'll get to that.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I jumped the shark. I'm sorry.
So you have increased heart rate, you have increased core temperature, right? With those come increased oxygen consumption, right? We have physical exertion, the muscles are working, they're requesting increased demand for oxygen. That's driving that physiological response.
Right.
With increased oxygen consumption, right? We're not just pulling that from the atmosphere now, we're pulling it from the SCBA. Right. So, increased usage of that SCBA. And as we found that if you go into that second bout of activity, There's a little bit of recovery. You get that break, right? So heart rate starts to come down, but we're still encapsulated.
Yeah.
Still wearing all that gear, right?
Heated
We're not
up, cold
dumping,
temperature.
dumping everything off to come out and get that bottle switch. It's quick switch, back in, finish the job. And we see core temperature doesn't really slow down. It just keeps right on going through that break. And so as you get into that second round, more elevated core temperatures, heart rate's very quick to start to climb back up again. But interestingly, what we found is that, especially in the back-to-back cycles, but really any of the 2-bout rounds, is that oxygen consumption actually starts to come down some. And what's interesting is that the air consumption, the amount of air you're using, doesn't come down, but the amount of oxygen you're able to use does.
The efficiency,
so
the efficiency of the transfer.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the big pieces was, to measure oxygen consumption. Typically, you're in a lab or a medical facility, right? And you've got the mask on. You're running on the treadmill. It's connected to a machine, but that doesn't work with firefighters doing firefighting tasks. So some of the work that we did back at Illinois was we designed a system that allowed us to interface with the SCBA, collect all the expired air, and send it through a portable metabolic monitoring system. And so we could actually collect that data of how much oxygen is used.
Techie stuff, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Fluid
This is where the propeller comes in, all right?
Look at the smile on his face. Come on, these guys are enjoying this.
You all of a sudden started steaming, brother.
Yeah, this is my
your
thing,
wheelhouse.
so.
I understand. I understand. Breaking windows is my wheelhouse, but that's your wheelhouse.
Hey, I love that too.
You like that too?
But so we designed this system to collect that metabolic measurements. We can actually see not just air that's used from the cylinder, but actually how much oxygen the body is consuming in that process. And that starts to decrease in the second round. And with that, we have decreased work output. Right. So as you're going through, and it's something we've probably all experienced, right? You go in, you do the first bout of activity, come out, and then as you get into the second one, same level of effort, but just the work output is not able to match what that is. And what we did find is that as, some folks weren't able to complete our evolutions. We asked, when you would call for a relief company on the fire ground, we want you to call the study, exit, and then we did some of the biomechanical tests after that. And we had a significant number of people who were not able to complete all the bouts of activity. And interestingly, that correlated some with that NFPA standard of, 12 mets or 42 milliliters per minute per kilogram of oxygen consumption. And so those on the lower side of it were less likely to complete the tasks. Those on the higher side were able to complete all of the skills that we had assigned.
What surprises? Anything surprise you in the thing? Any things that you weren't expecting?
I think so. To build off of that study, one of the next things we did was we looked at increased SCBA weight. So what happens if we go above current standard limits and push the SCBA beyond what's allowable under the current NFPA standards? And I think one of the most interesting pieces that came out of that was we asked firefighters what they thought, right? We didn't tell them what SCBA they were going to be wearing or how much it weighed, but they showed up, they went through the activities, and not surprisingly, they didn't like
one with the boat
ones.
anchor on it. Yeah.
So those that were 5 or 10 pounds heavier, I guess it's not surprising finding, but maybe a very interesting finding was that immediately firefighters could distinguish that this pack was substantially heavier. They felt like it was slowing them down.
Right.
And we didn't have statistically significant results showing that they were able to work less time with the heavier SCBA, but we also had a very small sample pool. I think with a higher sample pool, we might see some significant results.
Can I give you a finding, a scientific finding? I don't need a mask that tells me my biorhythms or what the weather is. Make it 5 pounds lighter. Can I just have that, please?
And very honestly, for someone who's done this, the 5 or 10 pounds additional is going to weigh on your mind. And we all know the mind is the number one in charge. And it will be like, oh my God, this is so heavy. This is so heavy. I'm getting tired. And what are you doing to yourself? You're self-convincing yourself that I can quit early. I can quit early. And I think it's a huge issue for us, you know?
Absolutely. 100% agree. That's what the comment that you made, almost to a T, every person who came out,
Everybody who's been to a fire
gave
could
us
you just
that,
make it a
that
little lighter,
feedback,
please?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, the article is really good. I guess two questions as we kind of close out this segment. Are you going to do some more research on it? Are you going to do some more writing on it? We were kind of hoping this would like revive it because it's obviously it was compelling enough for me to go try to find it. And you folks were the ones that were doing it. So is there more planned? And then number two, just a few quick things. Where does your research touch the shore of the firefighters that are listening? What are the biggest takeaways that you can give them?
Yeah. So to answer your first one, so this article's a summary of like 12 years of research. So it only touches on some of the key takeaways, what's important to the fire service.
What?
Believe it or not, right?
3 pages wasn't enough to be
Doesn't
comprehensive.
capture.
Dang it.
You're talking about the where it touches the shore. That's one wave in an ocean.
Yeah.
That article is one wave in an ocean.
I'll stand down,
Absolutely.
Richard. I'll stand down.
But we do have a publication based on that work that's in the final stages of review. Expect that to be published this summer, and highlight
Just
some of
so
that.
they know, where can they find that when it is published?
So it'll be published in Ergonomics. It'll be free access, but the FSRI, we'll share that through our social channels and everywhere. So watch for that there. Yeah, free open access to everyone.
Well, and please let us know, because we would love to link it on the Air Coalition website.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'd love to get it too.
We'll absolutely share that. And then just to close out, I think the big key takeaways are, as anyone who's in a supportive role or incident command, company officers just need to be aware of that change in oxygen consumption, change in physiological response, right? The impacts of working in PPE, even if you're not on air, there's going to be a physiological response. And just be aware of those and take those into consideration when you're making tactical decisions to make sure your people are ready to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I want you to know, in the air management world, we'll own up to it. We're responsible in large measure for really pushing 45s to our air management board. And the reason was not so that you could use that entire bottle in a cycle, but to do the NFPA mandated emergency reserve. And so what was nice about the 45 bottle, and not 45-minute bottle, but that's what we call it. What was nice about the 45, you had every bit of air that you used to get in the 30-minute bottle when you were using the whole thing. So you still got the same work cycle.
Maintain your same working time.
Yeah, but you got the emergency reserve that was intended for your emergency or to keep you alive, so the rapid intervention team could come to get you. That was our contention, and the little upgrade in weight made that worth doing. Now, as they stack more things on the mask, because 27 different things on the mask, I can't help that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, and I think the other piece is departments need to consider what are the important components to include in an SCBA. If you respond to a district where your tallest building, you don't have anything above 1 or 2 stories, do you need to add a 8 or 10 pound bailout kit to your unit? That's a consideration departments need to make.
Sure.
And weigh your tactics, your decisions, your operating environment, your community with how you spec your SCBA. That would be my last big takeaway.
Yeah. Well, man. Well, Richard, I was so stoked when you agreed to do this. I think I initially called Gavin, and Gavin's about the busiest dude in the history of mankind. And I knew he was going to say, "Don't call me. I got too much to do." But fortunately, you were the lead, and then Denise and Gavin just were able to support the research that you were spearheading. So we're stoked to see what you come up with next. So I hope the research keeps going. I can tell you from 2 guys who have worn SCBAs, it's valuable. We need it, and I think it'll be very influential in changing us. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate both of you, the Firefighter Air Coalition, Fire Engineering, for the opportunity to write that article, to be included, and to be here with you at FDIC. So.
Yeah. Well, gang. So this is the supplement. It's Firefighter Air, the Fireground, Our Mission and You. One of the rock star articles is Richard Kessler, Gavin Horn, and Denise Smith all about what the physiological aspects of doing our work is going to do to your air consumption. And I hope one thing that really perked your interest there, you can be breathing the same rate. That doesn't mean your oxygen efficiency is the same. That's a real interesting thing to pursue as you're moving forward. Man, thank you, brother. Yeah, really appreciate it. Look
Thank
forward
you.
to working with you more in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah? Maybe next time we'll get a supplement where we'll get like the thorough research instead of the compendium,
It'll
right?
be
So
nice.
it'll be a little thicker. Yeah. I don't think we can print that. So, yeah. Man, thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, really appreciate it. Yeah, all right. So, man, that is fascinating. Yeah, thank you, brother.
Thanks
That
a
is
lot.
fascinating. Next up, we're going to talk to yeah. Come on in, you rock stars. Come on in. We're just playing this as we go.
And thank God they can edit it.
Yeah. So again, we're bringing in two of our good buddies, influential leaders, not only within their own organization, but also on the national stage. Good Lord, at FDIC. I know, Jimmy, you're teaching at FDIC, and Chris just got done teaching at the the National Fire Academy and the EFO folks and everything else. Yeah. So over to the far side over here. I don't know if you're sweeping over to see guys or if you can see them, but we have Jim Silvernail. Right? Introduce yourself, Jim. Tell them where you're from.
Sure, absolutely. I love talking about my department. My name is Jim Silvernail. I'm the fire chief of the city of Kirkwood and the city of Glendale, outside by contract. That's a bizarre concept, but it's outside of St. Louis. I got a great department, great suburban department, and that's primarily what I do is a suburban area. And I can't speak enough about it. I speak enough about FDIC. I have the fortunate of sitting on the FDIC advisory board with these two gentlemen, and I'm very proud about that. But thanks for having me on.
And author of
Suburban Fire Tactics.
Yeah. So, different kind of tactics for different kind of size of departments, right? It's not a one size fits all. So, Jim's book on suburban tactics is one of the best sellers for fire engineering. I hope you'll check that out. So, and then my brother Chris Bloom,
Yes, sir.
from
Yep.
Meridian Fire.
Yep.
I was just in a class, a Metro officer class, with somebody who worked with you. And did he tell you?
In Tucson. Yeah.
In Tucson.
actually,
Yeah. So also
Tucson,
from
yeah.
Tucson, right?
Yep. Yep.
So
well, the first
do a
20
quick intro.
yeah.
Tell us about your
Okay.
department, Chris.
Yep. So Chris Bloom, thank you, Mikey D and Mikey G, for the opportunity to be out on the stage at the big show with you guys. But so fire chief for the past 3 years of the city of Meridian, Idaho. It's the second fastest growing city in the United States and the largest growing department or
Getting
city.
more
in-
expensive all the time.
It is. It very much is. And so we have some unique challenges that come along with the growth and the development that have been going on in a boom town. And certainly we've been able to take some proactive approaches to that. So it's a privilege to serve that community and that organization in that role.
Yeah, so I'll just tell you that these are two really good friends of ours, and they're two leaders that I listen to. They're two leaders that I watch. They're two leaders that I have learned a lot from. And one of the things that I'd like to highlight for you, since we're doing Firefighter Air Coalition stuff, we talked about technology. One of the things that the Firefighter Air Coalition supports is the idea of firefighter air replenishment system. So that's a mouthful. I know we'll call it FARS from here on out. It's air standpipe. So if you think about what a water standpipe does, you know exactly what an air standpipe does. Water in the street through fixed piping, and firefighters can get it at upper levels across long distances or down below grade. Air standpipe's exactly the same. Air in the street through fixed piping, and firefighters are able to get air where they need it, when they need it, at the upper levels of large structures, across big warehouses, and down into tunnels or underground parking garages. Now, the technology's been around for a while, but it's taken us a while to get it adopted. Yeah? These are two leaders that evaluated the technology for their organizations and determined that they were going to make a change. Chris, first in Idaho, correct?
Yes,
Yeah?
correct.
And I believe you are number two.
Number 2 behind Clayton.
Number 2 behind Clayton, yeah. But again, when you surround yourself with difference-making people, it's amazing how they're always on the cutting edge of what's best for firefighters and what's going on. So, was I blocking? Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, always on the cutting edge of what's best for firefighters. Here's what we want to do. I just want you guys to talk about, you could have said no. You decided to say yes. Jim, we'll just start with you. Why was for your beloved Kirkwood Fire that you love, why was that an important thing, especially in a suburban environment?
It's very simple. It's for the safety of our firefighters and to help them out. I mean, that's our job as fire chiefs, is to give the resources to our people and to advocate for them. I know I work in a suburban environment, and we have a couple 5-story buildings. We have a couple large box stores. And you might say, well, why would you ever want to consider this FARS system? Because you're really suburban. You're not the Bronx. You're not, anywhere where you're going to have a ton of high rise. Well, I'm going to tell you, take a look around. Our environments change daily. I've got buildings that are coming down, buildings going up. I want to be able to anticipate that. Right. I want, when these buildings go up, I want to have the resources and the tools ready for my firefighters to be able to make have the resources to make a strong, aggressive attack. And as you know, in our environment, we lack some of the resources that some of the big cities have. We might have 3 people on a company. We might have lack of companies. But when you have 3 people in a company, make it a stretch in some of these upper floors, it's going to take 3 companies, maybe even 4. I mean, to get that line in place.
If they're even there.
If they're even there. Yeah. And so where are the other logistics coming in? Who's bringing the air bottles up? If I've got the air there for me, I've got them. And if it's not there, what happens? You retreat. And what happens when you retreat? You're losing ground. And when you lose ground, you might as well just, every minute that fire's growing in intensity. So if I can give us a resource that not only gives us a fighting chance and lets them be more aggressive, and it's a safety feature too. So, I mean, that's my job. And if these are coming in, you should be aware of that. And you should be proactive, not reactive. And I think that's the whole key.
And I think it's very important that everybody understands that you're in a smaller department and do a great job with them, but you need 3 things to fight any fire. But especially in a high-rise or elevated structure or big box store, you need water, personnel, and air. And those 3 are vitally important. But if you're in a department that's doing the bottle brigade and you're bringing air, you're taking one of your resources, personnel, to bring another one of your resources, you're shooting yourself in the foot, because that water is not going to get applied on that fire because you are wasting your resources.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell me, Chief, when Amazon comes in and puts in that 1 million square foot warehouse in Kirkwood, how many extra firefighters do you think they're going to give you?
It's going to take a long time before that happens.
Yeah. Well, and gang, that's part of the point. And then we'll let Chief Bloom speak. All over the country right now, these massive warehouses are going in because property's a little less expensive, close proximity to the airport. Labor can be a little bit less expensive, and they've got the ground to build. They can put them in, and you are still responding with the same fire department, the same size department with the same amount of people, and you are responding to 1 million square foot structures with intense fire load and literally hundreds of employees, hundreds of people that potentially are going to need to be safe. I've heard it in some classes. Let me just tell you what Mike and I think. Don't tell me in Kirkwood or Meridian Fire, when they go to a big box warehouse and there are people needing to be saved, that they're just going to stand back and watch the thing burn. That ain't going to happen. It's a cool thing to talk about on the chalkboard. It's a cool thing to talk about in class. Like, well, we just won't go in. Baloney. People are in trouble. People need to be saved. They are not going to do stupid crap, but they're going to try to cut a path to get in there. How much better if they have some air resupply to actually pull it off? Chris, I came and taught for you. You almost recruited me to your department. It was actually the closest I've come, gang. Both Chief Bloom and Chief Schaefer in Spokane almost got me off the sidelines. It would be a privilege to work for either of these gentlemen, and it was close. It was really close. We talked about FARS.
Yep.
Here's the interesting thing about good leaders. Everybody says, "Oh, that would take forever. That would take you, 3 years to get through council. That we'd have to do a committee and a subcommittee and 87 focus groups." And, you know what? Chief Bloom said, "You know what? This makes total sense to me. I'm going to go talk to my city manager. I'm going to let my firefighters see a demo. We did a Zoom demo. What did it take? 3 weeks?
Yeah.
A month?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know what the focus groups are like in Meridian, but it was pretty damn snappy, man." So, Chris, why? Tell us why, and if you would, in the conversation, talk to me about this idea of upstream thinking that
Oh,
you're
okay.
teaching on so
Great.
much.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So that's interesting, Mike. You came and you did This House Rocks for the
Yeah.
Meridian Fire Department. It was a fantastic class. And you brought to my attention now and again, I had 23, 24 years in the fire service, and I was completely unaware of what FARS was. And having been a firefighter on the line that has gone to high-rise fires when I was in Tucson and being part of bottle brigades and working in dirty stairwells, the brilliance of what FARS represented, it was like, man, I really wish I had thought of that.
Right.
It just made total sense.
And why
Now,
didn't we? Why didn't we?
why didn't
Earlier,
we? Dang it, we missed our missed our moment. But and again, I think to Chief Silvernail's point, we want to stack the deck. We want to make our firefighters as survivable as possible, harder to kill, and more effective at doing their job. But on the flip side of that, there's also this return on investment for the community.
Sure.
When you are a builder, and so this was one of the things where we were trying to stitch together pockets of value. We had to get the building community on board with it. We had to get the elected officials to understand it. And we also needed to have departmental buy-in on it, because in order to make this initiative work and to be successful, we had to have buy-in on all those parties. And the benefit to that builder and the resident, they are now in the safest buildings that have the best chance for their firefighters to survive, for them as residents, occupants, and owners to survive, reducing the losses from fire damage. All of those things are amplified when you have additional capabilities, and FARS is just one of those. And I just it was to me, it was just a no-brainer, and it was really well received. We were able to get the Appendix L adopted in totality for those occupancies that you've already outlaid and described. And we already have 3 buildings now. And again, in Boomtown, we have 3 buildings with active FARS systems in it, and a mobile air unit.
Yeah, you do. Yeah,
Mobile air
donated by the FAC. You bet. One thing that I thought was cool about the process that went on there, when we went down there and filmed it actually happening, we had your mayor, we had city council people, we had people from the business community that were coming on the television and saying, we're going to put these buildings in and we want it safe for the people that are going to be in our buildings. Total grand slam. I mean, it just all done in the right way for the right reasons. A little bit kind of upstream thinking, right?
Yeah,
Talk about that for just a minute.
So that's the idea of upstream thinking was very very clearly outlined by Dan Heath in his book Upstream. And what's brilliant about his book is he talks about the fire service without ever mentioning the fire service.
Right.
And it's basically asking the question, what interventions could we have provided before an incident took place to have prevented the incident from happening in the first place? And FARS is an absolute in the extreme and an upstream intervention. It's providing survivable, breathable air for firefighters in obviously a toxic environment, and then obviously extending their ability to do work in those environments. And so that is an upstream methodology, and FARS is upstream in the thinking. So.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important that we also talk about, for both of you and Michael, and especially myself, the of the bottle brigade.
Oh.
Okay, and I can see your
Tripping
way.
over bottles in the stairwell, and is that one full? Is that one empty?
We'll bring our own air as the mantra that I hear from chiefs.
Oh yeah.
We'll bring our own air. And I mean, I know when I walked up the stairs in the '93 bombing of the World Trade Center, and they said carry up 2 cylinders and your tools. We were in rubber boots. Okay. Well, the rubber boots came off after about the 5th floor because your heels are getting rubbed raw, your feet are getting sore. They were tied around our neck. We left the bottle on. Throw that thing away.
Get steel and fiberglass wrapped bottles, not the lightweight carbon.
No, but we're carrying these things up. We had to walk 50 floors. Okay, 50 floors to get up to the elevator bank, and then getting up there and carrying these bottles in a smoke-filled staircase with people coming down. Well, we got a pack on our backs. We got 2 bottles. You got a set of tools. You got your boots. It's a fallacy to think that my personnel are going to be able to do this and then go to work, operate a hose line, search a floor, or anything else. I mean, the number of times I have heard about people climbing upstairs in above 15, 20 stories, chest pains, out of air, as we talked with our previous guest about the physiological things that happen to them. This is a fallacy. And we have to address that. We are looking at this. I would love someone to show me a case where it worked, where it worked well and everybody was able to do their job. Oh, yeah, I threw two cylinders over my shoulder, carried a set of irons with my gear, and I ran up 55 floors, and here I am ready to go. Give me the nozzle. I'll put the whole fire up by myself.
With a section of hose horseshoe around your
Oh,
cylinder,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah. Absolutely, positively ridiculous things. And we still say, I can do that. I can do that. My department can do that. My guys, my girls, they're superhuman. They're going to do all of that. Baloney. We're all human. Baloney. We're all there doing our jobs. And you, by not being open to change, to technology, to things like FARs and everything else that's out there, you are looking for something to happen. It's a fairy tale. It's Disneyland.
Yeah, I'd respectfully submit on that day when that explosion happened and those people were in trouble, there was not a more motivated set of firefighters, more trained with more sets and reps than the folks that were going up those towers in FDNY. Maybe as well trained, there was not a better trained group. And physiologically, was it possible to get that air up to where you were going?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The senior man in my company that day was a guy by the name of Jim Tierney, God rest his soul. And Jim Tierney was just an old-time firefighter, smoked Lucky Strikes and everything else. But he walked up. He made it up 50 floors. But he said he left a piece of gear on all the odd floors, and he spit and said, and a hunk of Harlem on all the even floors. Okay? But this is the truth. It took him an hour and a half to get up those floors. He did it. Okay? I can't tell you the number of guys who were taken down by other people for chest pains. And again, this is the physiological stuff of this. Now, I get chest pains. At least two of you are going to have to assist me down the stairs. So there goes two more personnel. Okay? So this is going to be huge issues for us. Huge issues for us. Because we're giving our resources away. We're giving our personnel away for something that is not feasible to happen.
Well, and here's the thing. If the only option we had, at that time, the only option you had is you just got to do the best you can do. So you try to get bottles up. It takes as long as it takes. You do the best you can. And in most instances, you have to cut corners and you're going to have to breathe smoke because that was all that was available at that time. If that's all there was, firefighters typically will do whatever it takes to get the job. However, if there's something in place, much like a water standpipe answered the question about how we deliver water, why would we not take advantage of it? In kind of closing out, just finish this off, Jim, finish this off, Chris, just take your turns. Talk to the chiefs out there because, listen, we talk to them all the time. So maybe it's because it's a couple of captains, like, what would those dummies know, right? Your chief officers and respected chief officers, talk to your comrades about why this is important for their people.
Well, like I said, I think it's super important to be proactive. Just because you're a suburban community right now and you say, well, I just don't have the buildings, guess what? They're coming. And I can tell you it's going to be really hard to get it in place once a building is up. To retrofit a building, it almost takes an act of God. And so if you have it in place beforehand, there's no questions asked. And that's why I think it's so important. And as a fire chief, if I can provide these tools to my people and to take this away, what we just talked about, I should. I mean, that's my job, right? And if I'm not doing my job, I shouldn't be the fire chief. And this is just a no-brainer.
Very cool.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
I appreciate that, and I could just say repeat what he just said.
Yeah.
But
What
I'd
Jim
also,
just said.
But what
That's,
he
I
just
actually
said,
say
it
that
was
a
good.
lot. What
It was
Jim just
good.
said, because he says
It was
brilliant
good.
stuff.
But I could also add, I mean, from my perspective, two chief officers out there, you have to get your elected officials, you have to create that understanding and buy-in that you're creating a safer environment for the occupant, the owner, and the responder.
Right.
And so that is hard to argue against. And you definitely just have to be passionate. You have to be a little bit stubborn, and you have to be convicted that this is the right thing for the right reason for your community as well as that fire department.
Yeah. Doing what leaders have done down through the centuries to do what needs to be done, right?
And very honestly, the other thing that I think we all have to look at is liability. Because I look at the NFL with the concussions. If you know something is not going to work and you know it's not working, but you continue to do it because it's the way we've always done it. My father did it that way. My grandfather did it that way. That was the way they did it back with the horse and carriage. Listen, those of us who are old in the fire service, remember when we never wore seatbelts? How stupid were we? We rode on the back step. How dumb were we? We didn't have bunker gear. Okay, well, times change.
Right.
You have to be proactive and look at what's going on in your departments and your areas. I mean, these big box stores that you talked about, they're coming in, and as we said, they're coming into very suburban, even rural areas because of the availability of land, the closeness to highways, near airports, which a lot of times are outside of cities. They're on the outside skirts of the city, okay? And they're coming into these places, and they're putting in these, the footprint is 1 million square feet, but inside there are 5 different levels inside that 1 million square feet. And you have all of these people in here. What are you going to do to protect these people? What are you going to do to protect your firemen? Just think about how many air cylinders would it take us to crawl across 1 million square foot from one side to the other to get out? How many cylinders? Okay, because that 1 million square foot building is a high-rise building just tipped over. It's on its side. Okay, and it's what we have to think, how we have to think about it. We have to be progressive in the way we are thinking and change the way we think.
Well, and as I do all the time, what Mike said. Guys, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
You know,
sir.
you know what, guys,
Appreciate it,
you're doing a good job. You're leading in the right way, and I look forward to having more conversations with you and watching stuff kick over in your town. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. So, Firefighter Air Coalition, we partner with the brightest and the best, and that's what we're going to bring you right now. Hey, Jimmy, would you tell Chief Lieb to come on in? Yeah, thank you. Another one of our pillars is fire smoke and firefighter cancer. And again, in our training supplement, we go after the brightest and best and slide in from the FDIC hallway and doing his thing, showing his book. Come on in, my friend. Come on in. We have, at least you guys know each other, brother. Yeah,
How you
man.
guys
Yeah,
doing?
thanks for coming. Thanks for coming.
How great is this? How
Um,
great is this conference? How great is our brother and sisterhood?
Yeah,
And our
Yeah.
profession.
on full display, right?
How great is this supplement?
You tell them. Tell them. Yeah, tell them who you are and tell them about it.
Frank Lieb, currently with the FDNY and author of one of the several articles in here. Just really good little supplement, and it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Because we got to do better. We got to do better and making sure that we're protecting ourselves and making sure that leadership is protecting our future.
Yeah. Frank, you are one of the ones at the forefront of talking about firefighter cancer, the implications of firefighter cancer, in conjunction with some wonderful organizations. You know, the Firefighter Cancer Support Network. I know you do a lot of research stuff with like Sarah Janke and all the other folks. Tell them what's going on out there in that world.
Well, and I've also recently accepted a position as the managing director of the First Responder Center for Excellence.
I'll salute. Yeah, because you didn't have enough hats to wear.
I didn't. Yeah, what it matters, right? It's being involved with organizations and causes that make a difference and make a difference in keeping firefighters healthy and safe. We need to be aggressive on the fire ground, safe and aggressive, and also make sure that we're cleaning up afterwards. We make it and be just as aggressive doing that, making sure that that we're doing all the things that make it where we have those years at the end, right? Those
wanna see
we
what
can do those
grandkids,
bucket list
right?
things. I got
Yeah.
a 2-year-old granddaughter now, and
Yeah.
I want to see her get married. I want to see her go to college and graduate high school. All these things that I want to do, and you only do it if you take care of yourself when you're a younger firefighter. And a lot of things that I didn't know about when I was a younger firefighter. Right? Think of things we would do differently.
Oh, goodness. Oh, my goodness.
I say I would be just as aggressive on the fire ground, but I would be aggressive making sure I took care of myself
Absolutely.
as well.
Washing my gear, cleaning myself after a job.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the stuff that I did, and I did poorly, not wearing my mask during overhaul. All of this stuff is stuff that we look back, and very honestly, for me, I know my breathing now with my, if I go someplace and firefighters start smoking a cigar, I got to leave because I can't take the cigar smoke and I will have an upper respiratory infection if I stay in a place with cigar smoke in a matter of 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So, and that's a price I pay, and that's okay. I did it, and I made those decisions. But I'm here to tell you, those guys who went before me, who never wore masks, I watched a lot of them pass away, and they died horrible deaths. Horrible deaths.
And now, so question for you: if you could do it again, would you wear your mask more? Would you wear it to
Absolutely.
overhaul? Would you make sure that your firefighters were doing that?
Absolutely.
Because we know so much more today, right?
Listen, I owe their families an apology for letting them take it off. I owe their families, I don't know if I took a year or 2 years off their lives by letting them do that. As a boss, because I did it or allowed it to happen, it's on me.
But to a large degree, we didn't know any better.
We didn't
right?
know
Now
any
the
better.
research is indisputable. Right?
Indisputable. Indisputable.
Leadership that doesn't do something to protect their people today is negligent because we have so much data, right? Our beloved profession, right, has been redesignated as a Group 1 carcinogen. Right? You think about it: asbestos, benzene, gasoline, diesel fuel, firefighting. Like, which one of those doesn't belong? Right? It's because there's evidence of that our profession causes an increase in cancer. The good news is there's many things that we could do. Simple steps, as you mentioned, a few of them. Wash your hands. Right? Simple things that we can do. And it's the
washing your
background
hands.
changed.
Washing your hands would make my Irish Catholic mother very happy. So, I mean, we always had to wash our hands. But just as simple as washing your hands, wiping yourself down after the job, okay? All of these things are so important that we understand that we can avoid this, And the other thing, growing up as I did, Irish Catholic, I am very, very light-skinned. I like to call it pink.
Say it isn't so.
Pink and peel. Pink and peel. Pink and peel. We never had sunscreen when I was a kid. I got to go to the dermatologist every 6 months. I've got a couple of pieces taken off. Okay? Take care of yourself. And the point for me on this is, if something doesn't feel right, go to your doctor. I go to my doctors all the time. I go to my cardiologist. I had my echocardiogram the other day. Oh, no, I got that next week. I had my nuclear stress test. And do all these things. Take care of yourself, because you want to do, and this is my joke, I can't do the Star Trek finger thing, but you want to live long and prosper when you retire. You want to be there. One of my friends' father-in-law was the oldest living FDNY retiree at 104. Retired as a battalion chief in the 60s and lived to 104.
Wow.
And I said, I want that title for one day, just one day. The oldest living. I got to write that son of a gun a check again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about, right?
Yep,
and
absolutely.
And the modern fire ground is different than it was back then, and we're seeing higher cancer rates and younger firefighters, and and these chemicals. I mean, you think about it, they're off-gassing. These synthetics are off-gassing from the moment that they are produced, right? I mean, they're heating up these synthetics and making compounds. I mean, think about your new car. You're buying a new car, and you get that new car smell. Well, it's off-gassing, especially when you heat it up. And now think about these chemicals. It's called, what's happening is they're unzipping. The chemicals are unzipping, and that's what's off-gassing, and that's what we're breathing in. So we see it as simple as when your car on a hot day on a new car, and that's what that is. And think about it when in a fire, that these things are off-gassing at lower levels when they're not on fire. Now we add heat and flame, and we got to do better. We got to use the equipment that we have, leverage the technology that we can for our advantage, and be better. So it's stuff like this to make sure that we're getting the word out and that people are and leadership is heeding the advice that now that we know better, and it's inexcusable for a leader to put their head in the sand and not do something to best protect their people now.
Yeah, a long time ago, Frank, a book called In the Mouth of the Dragon by Deborah Wallace. Bobby Halton introduced me to that book. Deborah Wallace was a prophet, and she talked about fires and smoke in the age of plastics. This is, going back 30 years. And the term for what you're talking about, the unzipping, is quantitative decomposition. And
Yes.
so from the moment the plastics are heated up, they're off-gassing hydrogen cyanide, list off the chemicals. But certainly hydrogen cyanide and some of these other ones that are really toxic. You think you're going to walk across the room and get to the fire 30, 40, 50, 80, 100 yards down the way. The whole time you're going, you've got the carpet off-gassing these things, and it is starting to have an impact on your physiology. It's starting to have an impact on the oxygen consumption and the absorption of the oxygen. That's quantitative decomposition.
Yeah, and when you talk about Deborah Wallace, so that book, In the Mouth of the Dragon, was written in 1990, 2 years before I went on to the New York City Fire Department. No one was doing anything really in that space. So fast forward, I know Deborah Wallace, and I am going to be the co-author of the second edition of In the Mouth of the Dragon.
Phenomenal. That's one of the best things I've heard.
So
Bobby was trying to get that done and never pulled it off. That's amazing.
Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah,
you heard it here.
You heard it here.
Mikey G and Mikey D show. In the Mouth of the Dragon is getting republished with Frank as a co-author.
Yeah,
That's
and it's going to be,
incredible.
so that book doesn't have a focus of firefighters on it, although it's a fantastic book for firefighters. And the second edition is going to be largely for firefighters. It's going to have the actions that you can take to best protect yourself, understand the fire environment, using a half a dozen or so case studies. But so my first book that I put out is Cornerstones of Leadership.
Hold that baby up.
Right? So this is out now. The second one, it's going to be a fire engineering book. It's 30 Fires You Must Know. And that one is one of the fires that book features is the New York telephone fire. And Danny Noonan helped write the chapter for that book. So the 30 Fires You Must Know is 30 different fires from around the country where we reached out to Billy Goldfeder and myself, where the fire is spoken about from somebody else's vantage point. And then that's in there with some drill lessons and an intro. And all the proceeds for that are going to 4 different charities. The Firefighter Cancer Support Network being one of them, First Responder Center for Excellence being another, and two others. Of course, I'm forgetting the 4 that they are right now, but that's for the cause. Yeah. One of them, the Ray Downey Fund, I know was one of the others. So there's 3 of the 4. But
as Meatloaf would say, that ain't bad.
Yeah,
right? 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
So then the Mount of the Dragon second edition will be the 3rd book. I got to get my button gear, doing my part to get that over the finish line, because it's a lot of work to get a book over the finish line, right? It's, as you know.
Yeah. Once it's in print, it's in print. You want to do it right.
That's right. And it's that book, the Mount of the Dragon one, is really a labor of love. I reached out to Deborah Wallace about it, and the first time she's like, I said, I need 200 copies of your book. She's like, that can't happen. It's out of print. I need you to do a second edition. That can't happen. I'm 79 years old. This is all on the same conversation. And then it just came out, and I just said, how about we write a second edition together? And you just let me use 6 of the chapters. She's like, I'm 79 years old. I don't have the time for that. I said,
should have said you're 79 years old. You got nothing but time.
Come on. Well, she's still working. She's still working.
Man.
She's an amazing individual. She's put a lot of work into this project already, and I'm excited. But it's truly a labor of love from both of us because the first time I read that book, just super motivated me. And I was at a Fire Chiefs Association meeting in New York City that somebody had the foresight to bring her in to speak. Yeah. And while I was there, I ordered the book while I was in the audience, and I've bought a dozen copies of that book. Every time it goes cheap on Amazon, I artificially have inflated the price of it. And I buy them and I give them out to people because we need more soldiers in this war. To make sure we save the future of our profession.
Well, speaking of soldiers, we've only got about 5 more minutes here. The title of your article in our training supplement is Synthetics in a Modern Fire Environment, the Importance of the SCBA. You could have written about a lot of things. Why was that such a compelling topic? Why was that what you chose for our training supplement?
Because the easiest way to protect yourself from the modern fire environment is to wear your SCBA that you likely have on your back already. Right? You're bringing your air in there, right? The bonus air, free, right? What's the term you use in your book and in your articles? Mama's air or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
It's the air that's going to get you home to mama. Right?
Yeah, so whatever it takes to motivate you to use the equipment that we have, because we have the equipment, it makes no sense. You have this free air on your back and we don't use it. And it, it's the simplest way to protect you from inhalation, inhalation hazards.
And so, very honestly, chief officer, I'm captains, but chief officer, if I walked into a building without my air pack on at a working fire, would you tear me a new butt?
You wouldn't do it. You
No.
wouldn't do it.
No,
No one walks in without their SCBA on their back.
But now I'm not going to put it on. And I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I go back to one of the stories when I was a young fireman being yelled at, taking time to get an air pack for an oil burner fire. And we went into the basement and it was an oil burner. It was, that black, disgusting smoke. Kid, we don't bring those with us on these. Look like a bunch of sissies. Sissies. Okay?
Expletive deleted.
Yeah.
Yes. A bunch of sissies. And I'm like, what? What? And I mean, these guys are coming out with black strings hanging out of their nose and off the corners of their lips and in their ears. And all of that stuff is now in your body. I mean, and again, I wanted to be one of the guys, so I didn't bring an air pack. Okay? The next one, I didn't bring an air pack. And I'm like, what an idiot.
Yeah. And now we have it on our back, right? We need to get better using it. And we are, right? We are significantly better.
Yes, absolutely.
We are definitely moving the needle. Firefighters are wearing their SCBA earlier and they're keeping it on longer. So and all the different things that we're doing. Firefighters are physically fit. So you think about all the different ways that we are moving the needle in a positive direction to make it, because the bottom line is, again, we just want to keep our firefighters healthy and safe. And if we could do that while maintaining aggressive on the fire ground, firefighting is a dirty job. That comes with it. But there's no reason afterwards that we can't clean up quickly and make sure that we're using these are simple things that don't negatively impact the mission, right? Because the mission, it's about them and making sure that we protect them, but it's also about our families and making sure that we're there for the long term for them. So we got to make sure we balance both.
Yeah, them includes the firefighter to the right of you and the firefighter to the left of you, and it also includes your family.
Yeah,
that's a big. There's a big group that includes them, and we're going after people with everything we've got. That doesn't mean we're kamikazes and it's a one-way mission.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. But and you're right. We got to get in there as quickly as we can. But there's ways that we can do it that give us a tactical advantage and also make it where we live a long and healthy and
retirement.
Yeah.
Live long and healthy.
You got it.
Yeah. And very honestly, there's nothing better. I mean, no joke. What's the best thing an old fireman can teach you? Fireman. Absolutely.
It's so true.
It's so true. Yeah. Because you want to go through. You want to get to the place where I am right now, where I'm with my wife. We're traveling. We're seeing the world. We're going and doing things. We're planning trips. We're going all over the place. A trip of a lifetime to Alaska for 2 weeks. So great. These are the things you want to live for.
Absolutely.
That you can do.
And kudos to you two that you're using this platform to not only talk about firefighting strategy and tactics, but to talk about the hard-hitting issues that we need to talk about, because we're accelerating the learning pace for our younger firefighters with everything, and that must include how to protect yourself and keep yourself healthy. That has to be part of the conversation.
Well, the conversation's been incredible. The training supplement that the Firefighter Air Coalition has put out is Firefighter Air, Fireground, Our Mission in You. We brought in the brightest and the best. Frank Lieb, we brought in Gavin Horn and Richard Kessler and Denise Smith. We got Jack Murphy, Moment of Silence. Hope everything's okay with
Everything's
him.
good.
Jerry
Everything's
Tracy,
good.
the Firefighter Cancer Support Network contributed. Our goal, gang, as we close it out on the Mikey G and Mikey D show, is to bring you the brightest and best in the nation. The Firefighter Air Coalition wants to help you improve what you do with your air, and we're very proud to be a part of it. God bless you, man. Live from FDIC.
Thank you.